All right, everyone, we are back for another episode. Really great to have Vamps on, Count Vamps, from the Count Vamps YouTube channel. Man, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Yeah, yeah, very good, and thank you for having me. Yeah, just chilling down here in summer in Australia, so nothing major.
Yeah. Well, I have one of my other friends, Boz, is in Australia now. I know correct me if I'm wrong, but you Australian wargamers, you are like super hardcore because I always hear that the tariffs are like the cost, right, is really expensive. Is that right? I always hear the Australians
Yeah,
complaining about that.
yeah, the tariffs here are crazy. For example, you guys, I think, pay about 70, $60 for a squad of Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
We pay about 110.
Yeah. So true wargaming fans. I give all my respect to the all because there's a lot of really good content creators coming out of Australia. It's pretty cool. So do you attribute that to anything in particular?
Honestly, I'd probably say our internet actually getting good enough to record. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So I want to get into talking because I really like your channel because your channel is one of those channels that it's similar to mine is that you don't really have a particular game you just stick to. You're sort of just you're sort of like a general war gamer. I feel you cover some one page rules, you cover some other stuff. And I like that. You're kind of all over the place. But so we'll get into all that a little bit. But real quick, I'd love to. I'll always like to ask. So tell us a little bit about your history in wargaming and sort of, what made you want to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I started back in like 2002, and it was MechWarrior: The Dark Age. So that was an interesting war game to start with for sure. We got a bit hated by the Warhammer and the BattleTech guys. It was kind of funny. And then I went to Pirates, and then the Lord of the Rings game, and then I sort of naturally went to Warhammer. And the guy got me into Lord of the Rings, got me into Warhammer Fantasy. So I was a bit all over the place there, which was fine. I got to play a lot of different war games, which was fun. Um, and yeah, so I just thought, let's start a YouTube channel about it because I want to get more people into different war games.
Yeah.
And the big inciting factor was is that I used to stream, but sorry, 2 seconds. I used to stream, but I realized I didn't need any incentive to play video games, but I
Mm-hmm.
did need an incentive to paint. So I was like, oh, let's start a channel. So
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. The streaming is I guess I'm too old to get into the streaming. Uh I guess I kind of got into the YouTube thing. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And 2002, so that was I feel that was kind of the height of the GW. I mean, you got into MechWarrior, but I always think of like the early 2000s as sort of like the height of I always think like GW games and the GW like it had gotten the 90s it had grown and then it had gotten to a point where you had that kind of peak and then everything else has kind of started to oh maybe I'll let you answer that like how what has been your experience with GW because you said you got into fantasy first right
no, so Lord of the Rings was my
oh
first
I'm
game.
sorry yeah
Yeah, no, that's all good. So my experience with them is that I really did quite enjoy Lord of the Rings. I thought that was relatively fairly priced and had a very. Well, I haven't. It's probably one of my favorite Games Workshop games. Funnily enough, I just really like the rules. I thought it was very streamlined, nice and affordable. And then I got into 40K, and yeah, like I felt like it was a little bit overpriced for me at the time, but it wasn't too badly priced. And then fantasy obviously was my jam
oh
really. Like
wow
I ended up really good at fantasy, and I also felt like that was slightly more affordable than 40K, funnily enough.
huh
But for me, I think my Games Workshop journey has sort of been, I started playing in that sort of early 2000s. I thought everything was relatively fairly priced. and then it got more and more expensive, and it just really didn't grip me as much as it used to. And I got back in 8th edition,
Hmm.
and I really like the what do they call them, the indexes.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they started doing their whole codex thing, and everything was so expensive. I just had to sort of stop playing Games Workshop games. And then I bought my 3D printer,
Hmm.
and the rest is sort of history.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think for me with Games Workshop, I think they sort of are a bit over-engineered in some levels, and I do think that the miniatures are very expensive as well for what you get.
Yeah. And that's sort of always been the case. And I always bring up GW because I feel your channel is sort of doing a lot of good work in talking about there's so many different games out there. And in particular, I love you did your tier list. And I love that you ranked, and that's a lot of really good content that I think is going out. You either get people like against GW, or they have one particular game in which that game is the best ever and every other game sucks. You seem to be judging all these games in sort of a, I guess, your own objective standards. Yeah, it's subjective, but I think that you are. I mean, you make a tier list, right? You are trying to provide some sort of level. Um, what? So, what is that sort of what you said you wanted to get other people involved in these different sorts of games? Maybe talk a little bit about your tier list, and I'll post a link in there because your S tier game is a game I was very interested in getting into. But I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so the idea behind the tier list is to pretty much get on my games each year and kind of rank them,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the thing is that like Warhammer is a decent game. It's not like amazing in my opinion, but it does the job.
No.
So my goal is to show people that A, there's much more affordable wargaming out there, and B, there are better war games out there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, Silver Bayonet, which was the winner of this year, it's an extremely well made and well thought out game. You roll attack and damage at the same time, which I thought was a really novel idea. And it just has this really cool theming of like Napoleonic combat, but what if werewolves and vampires and ghosts are real and you hunt them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think my overall goal is to show people that Warhammer is just the tip of the iceberg, and there are better games below the surface.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
No. No.
So my tier list is just demonstrate that.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's I haven't played Silver Bayonet, but I've heard. I guess I wasn't surprised you picked because I've heard a lot of good things about Silver Bayonet. Um, I originally heard of it through I have some weird war guys who have all these games or lore about weird wars, and like one of them was Silver Bayonet. I always from that group I always hear about Silver Bayonet. Um, and then but there's several of these games. There's like Silver Bayonet, Trench Crusade, Conflict 47, which is a game that is actually getting a lot of hype. I'm supposed to be playing a demo of it. And then there is also Turnip 22 as well, which is its own. What do you kind of think about this sort of genre? About it's a little bit of history, a little bit of World War, and a little bit of fantasy, all sort of just rolled together. Yeah.
So I think the thing is that I love the idea of sort of bringing real history into things, because I think we have a basis then, right? We can go, oh yeah, no, this is something that we're aware of, like if it's World War One or Napoleonic or some type of alternate history.
Mhm.
I just think it's a very good basis because the lore is built upon what already exists. So I think overall, I think it's a great sort of little genre to sort of dip your toes into, and I think it's going to be familiar enough for people to go, oh well, I'll have a go at that because and I don't know about World War One or whatever it happens to be, and it is just World War One with supernatural stuff.
It,
So
it
I just think, yeah, it's very interesting overall.
I think to me it's really cool in that it's that genre is, and one of my friends, he does a weird World War II channel. All those things in that genre, they still retain their weirdness. Like I feel like 40K and fantasy, they're sort of getting a little streamlined still. You know, you're losing, but the weird war genre is still just as weird as ever. You know, it is still a place where you get that wackiness. I feel of like, I was introduced to it with Command and Conquer Red Alert. I don't know if you have heard about Command and Conquer, and like so that introduced me to this genre. You know, it was such a great lore, such a good game, and you know, it had great actors like people like Michael Ironside, you know, and I'm forgetting his name, the guy from Russia. Jeez, I forgot. I'm gonna think of his name, but yeah, it's a great little genre to kind of pop in.
Yeah, I started in Red Alert 2, but otherwise, pretty similar start point.
Yeah. So, you've talked about, and please go watch this tier list. I'll link it in there. So I want to kind of tie this in to what's happening in the wider game of the war game hobby. And now I think it's always been the case of Games Workshop versus the rest. But I feel it feels like since 10th edition 40K came out, there has been this shift where I don't know that 40K is going to instantly become extinct, but it feels that to me, when 10th edition came out, despite what everyone said about it, it was basically GW saying it's ninth just with tweaks, and for the foreseeable future, it's going to be basically be ninth edition plus tweaks. I know that 11th edition is supposed to be coming out. Um, I get the distinct impression it's just going to be more of the same. So, with that being the case, it feels like the last few years people have realized that there isn't going to be massive changes in 40K, and that have people started maybe giving up on 40K and saying things aren't going to change. Let's start moving to different games. I'll let you kind of. That's what I've noticed. What have you kind of noticed in the wargaming, just overall, with regarding the GW?
Yeah, I think the thing is that sorry, 2 seconds.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, my apologies. I think the big thing for me is that I think people are starting to realize that Games Workshop is all about that dollar, right?
Yeah.
And I think more people are finding that unsavory. Everything Games Workshop comes with a cost. For example, let's take Hail Caesar, my most recently reviewed game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That rule book is 13 USD at the moment.
Yeah.
That's staggeringly cheap. A digital copy of a rulebook in 40K is like 40, 50, $60, depending on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me is sort of crazy. So I think the sort of naked avarice of Games Workshop is sort of driving people away.
Mm-hmm.
But if we sort of look at Warhammer as a whole, I think the big issue is that the balance just isn't there. They're more concerned about releasing the next range of miniatures or the next set of rules rather than trying to sort of balance out what rules they've got there. And I think people are starting to get annoyed with that, particularly Xenos players. Like if you're Dark Eldar, you're getting nothing, right? Like you're just sort of stuck in a rut. And then Space Marines get, Captain Kickass of the Kickass Legion, and he's ridiculously overpowered and unbalanced. So I think the thing is that people are starting to lean away from it because it's more about sort of getting you to invest more and more money than it is about actually making an enjoyable game. As far as 11th edition goes, I have no clue where they're going to go with it. More than likely, they're going to keep sort of pushing that 9th edition stuff because the reason 10th edition exists is that they bought 9th edition with all the mortal wounds and the ways to resist mortal wounds, and they just need to sort of reset all that crap. So yeah, it's sort of hard to tell where they'll go with 11th edition, but I think probably on the note there, they'll just make more 9th edition stuff.
Yeah, they
as
will.
Far as,
Yeah, streamlining. And
No,
exactly. It's
yeah,
like I think to me what I've seen is you're right. I think both of us have been in this long enough that we know that GW has really always been about it. It has over the years gotten more naked. I like that word about the naked avarice. It's just gotten really more just straight to the point. I think to me what I have noticed is that there was a lot of hope before 10th that, oh, GW's really going to get this right. They're going to make the changes. And what GW did was sort of just tweak things. They branded it as this big thing that was going to come out, and made sweeping promises. And it was, I mean, not that 10th edition is worse or better. It's better than ninth, I will say that. But it's not really, and I think the community as a whole came to the realization that this is what 40K is going to be. And if you like it, those people are going to stay in 40K. And that's what's happened. People who were like, yes, 10th edition is ninth with some tweaks, awesome. But I think for a lot of people in Wargaming, they kind of said, oh, this is just going to continue. I want to start looking forward. And that seems what I've noticed. Would you agree with that? That there are people who love 10th. There's nothing wrong with that. But they like 10th because it was really ninth with tweaks.
yeah. I think I have noticed on a whole, more war games are getting played, and people are branching out. And I think that's a good thing because Games Workshop has had a bit of a death grip on the wargaming community for a fair while, which is fair enough. They were like game for a while. But I think it's time that we sort of branch out and let other people sort of, make attempts at improving the wargaming scene.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about 2025, and I want us both to maybe, because I've got some games in mind, but I also I love that you're sort of a connoisseur of games. So I'd love for you to maybe take some opportunity to talk about some games coming out in 2026. They don't even have to be new. They can just be games that we are interested in 2026 that says, hey, this game looks really interesting, and just sort of shout outs about what are some games that you think are really doing it right that you're looking forward to getting to. And so I'll let you start out. What's one game that it doesn't have to be new that you're really excited about getting into in 2026?
Yeah, there's this game called Pulp Alley that I've heard of, and basically, from what I understand, it's sort of like a generic rule set where you can play whatever you sort of want to do. So you can have whatever setting that sort of goes into Pulp Alley.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a big fan of that. I was a big fan of a game called GURPS back in the day,
Oh, of course.
because it's just like you can do whatever the hell you want in it, right? So I'm interested in Pulp Alley for that reason.
Very cool. Oh man, you just calling out GURPS. That's my jam right there.
Yeah,
I didn't play a lot of D&D back in the day. I really played a lot of Shadowrun and a lot of GURPS. So I love that. I love that GURPS is getting some love. That's awesome. Now but
yeah,
this
it
is
certainly needs more.
oh yeah. Now,
Support.
but this is this is basically GURPS as a war game, correct? Or is this a RPG?
From what I understand, I haven't done a ton of research into it. I've heard some people talk about it, and I'm like, I like to go in fresh. So I tend to go, okay, this sounds cool. I'm going to play this. I'll wait until I've got the rule book, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I mean, for me, and I've already mentioned it before, I've heard a lot of good things about Conflict 47. It's a guy I'm going to try to get into a play. The models look great. Warlord Games is a pretty established. It's been around. It's one of the big dogs, if you will, think about in wargaming. So it's got some pretty solid backers, and I've watched a game. I'm supposed to get a game in. It looks really cool, and the models look great. It's in the weird World War II genre. The storyline, how about this? It reminds me a lot of like Riffs. I get a good, like Shadowrun '90s slash Riffs feel for it. So
Cool.
yeah. So I'm really kind of digging that, and I'm hoping it's going to scratch that up because if it goes well, I may be buying some models for Conflict
Oh,
47.
that's always good, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, so that's me right now. How about you? What's another game that's just really on your radar?
So right now, yeah, it's been on for a while. Bolt Action, which is another Wall of
Oh,
Games
okay, okay.
one, but they're just about to release a digital version of the actual war game that you can play online on Steam and stuff like that.
What?
So so I thought it would be a great time to actually review the game when that gets released as well, so I can cover both the digital and um, the actual war game as well. So.
Now this is a video game, or is this like tabletop simulator version, or is?
So basically, it's tabletop simulator version, but it's specifically designed for bolt action.
Oh wow! Oh man, that's Warlord is really stepping up there. It's really stepping up.
Yeah, which
Um,
I think is a great move too, because I mean, we don't really have a lot of that. As you said, tabletop simulator is pretty much the only way to play games online. So the fact that they can go, oh look, you can just play the war game online, I think is a fantastic move.
it and we haven't talked. This is sort of tangential, but with everything that happened, and I'm playing Warhammer Total War 3 still. Like I still periodically jump into that game and just play. Do you think okay, we do know that Warhammer Total War 3, well, the Total War series in general, it had an impact that was greater than it kind of got Games Workshop on the greater map. Do you think that's going to be even more so when 40K, because 40K Total War has been announced? How big of a deal do you think
Yeah.
that's going to be?
Look, I think the thing is that the difficulty is that Creative Assembly itself is sort of at a low at the moment. Like the fan sort of opinion of them has sort of turned in the last few years.
Uh,
So it is hard to sort of tell where they'll go with 40K. Also, they're notoriously bad at having games where guns are the focus. Empire Total War did not do great.
well, you mean the Three Kingdoms version, right? Or
No, sorry. I mean, like the Napoleonic game
oh,
that they
oh
made.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, boy, I don't want to get it. We could really because I think everyone has a lot of very intricate opinion. I have an intricate opinion. I know what you're saying. I think I have a lot of intricate opinions about Creative Assembly.
yeah,
Because, but I mean, to me, I look at like the Three Kingdoms Total War was a super good game, but they just sort
oh
of
yeah, definitely.
dropped the ball on it. So I don't know, but yeah, it's but but do you think still that Creative Assembly? Do you think it will be enough? Do you think it'll be good enough? I mean, so I know you mentioned, yeah, I'll let you kind of finish that thought here.
Yeah. I think that they'll probably do a decent job of it. As long as they make sure they don't have too many bugs or anything like that, and that everything actually functions, I think they'll do fine.
Mhm.
But of course, it is Creative Assembly, so we'll see what happens.
It,
Um,
I think with Creative Assembly, at least for me, my biggest issue is just some of the pay structure. I think some of their extra modules are overpriced, but I mean, when I look at their game, I mean, not overall. I haven't played every single one, but like I've played Total War, I've played the Three Kingdoms, I've played I've played several of them. They're solid games to one. I mean, they're not the greatest games in the world. I do feel that if Creative Assembly just doesn't, you're right. If they don't muck it up, I mean, it's you know, people are gonna play those, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Um, I mean, look at. I know there's still an audience for there was the versions that came out that were they were playing that one. I forgot, man. I'm gonna because we're going on a whole different point. I didn't point. Point being, I think that's really cool that Warlord is breaking that out, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Bolt action. I haven't taken the plunge on historicals yet, but I think if I like Conflict 44, I probably will go Conflict 47. I definitely will probably eventually jump into Bolt action as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really good game. So
yeah, yeah. For me. one of the games that's just been really on my radar, and we have a group that plays, it's probably Moonstone. And I found out about Moonstone a couple of years ago, and the models look great, the lore looks great. I've got a few projects piled up before it, because I am going to be playing some Kings of War Fourth Edition. I'm I don't know, Mantic. I have a really tough. We'll talk about, because I know you brought up Firefight, and I want to talk about Mantic. I have a
Yeah.
real complex history with Mantic, but I do think that I want to play Kings of War Fourth Edition from a non-competitive perspective. I think as long as I don't want to get into Fourth Edition competitive, because I think I used to do that, but Fourth Edition does look good, and maybe we can. I actually want to talk with you separately about Mantic, because I think that sort of has its own discussion there. Because you brought up a great point about Firefight and one-page rules that I actually want to delve into a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
But for me, I'd love to check out Moonstone. It's a relatively small investment and great looking models. And yeah, it's right there on sort of that it's like Turnip 22, but it's actually being played. Like, I would love it if people were playing Turnip 22 around here, but they're not. So probably Moonstone is up there.
That's the big rub, isn't it?
Yeah, Turnip 22 looks so, and I've heard such good things about, and the lore is amazing. There's just no one playing it, unfortunately. Even if it's model agnostic. Yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah. I mean, that does help though, at least. So, model agnostic always is a helpful move, I think.
yeah. Okay, so that's me. So how about you? What's another game that's on your radar that you are definitely excited about? 2026. Yeah.
So I think one of the big ones that I'm interested in playing is Dracula's America, it's called.
Oh.
And it's another one of those sort of like sort of Wild West sort of period, and like Dracula is basically taking over the United States. So it's always been on my radar, but I've never got around to it. But I'm definitely going to get around to it this year.
Now, is this a Western basically, or is this?
Yeah, I think it's set in like the either the early 1900s or the late 1890s, basically.
So this is basically, and is it in the similar feel of what was it called? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, I
It's
think?
very much that, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I haven't watched that movie, but I've heard it around, and I've heard it's pretty good. I haven't like.
It is, yeah.
Is it worth it? Okay, because I didn't see it. I'm not a big person, but it sounds like it's right into that sort of that weirdness. That's awesome. So is this a skirmish game, or is it a RPG ish sort of game?
I believe it's a skirmish game. I think there is some sort of minor RPG elements, as there is in a lot of skirmish games. But yeah, I'll certainly be reviewing it at some point, so I'll have a bit more of a further opinion on it. But this looks really cool, and the miniatures look really good. And the rule book, one of the big things is that when I look at a rule book, does it sort of suit the part? And it's very much one of those grab you by the throat kind of rule books.
Oh man, I haven't even heard it. So you're sort of on the cutting edge of this stuff, because you're telling me, yeah, I haven't even heard of. Like, I want to check this out now. That's a really great thing. There is so much creativity coming out that I sort of do hope that 40K continues on this trajectory, because I do believe that, and it's, if you love 40K, that's great, but I do feel eventually people are going to get tired of it, and I hope that they just turn to one of these many other creatives here. So we've talked about some games. I did want to take some time with you because to talk about Mantic, because
Yeah.
you had a really good conversation that I echo when you talked about Firefight compared to one-page rules. And I know that you play one-page rules as well. I play one-page rules as well. And your experience with Fire feels a lot like mine, which is that I played Firefight. It's a pretty good game. Like, I think you're right. It's a little better than one-page rules in the sense that it's not trying to tie itself down to this arbitrary, it's got to be on one page, right?
Yeah.
So I feel the rules are a little more fleshed out. The command point system, it's one of those things. It's like I don't love it or hate it. You either like it or you don't, and I don't mind it. You know what I mean? I like it in the sense that it prioritizes leaders, and that's something that one page I wish one page rules would do more of, is make your leaders worth either being protected or not here. Maybe kind of, and we'll talk about some of the disadvantages of it, but maybe like give us some other advantages because you rank them pretty close. How do you kind of some pros and cons of each?
So I think one of the big pros with Mantic is that once again, as you said, their leaders stand out, right? For better or worse, they stand out, which I think is a great thing to have because I find with one-page rules, while I love it, commanders tend to be beat sticks a lot of the time, or they are extensions of beat sticks, right? They give this guy furious, or they give this guy +1 AP or whatever. They don't really play the role of commander. They play the role of slightly meh, sort of hitter basically. While Mantic is very good at going, you want to keep your leaders alive because there's so much stuff tied to them. So it's great. I think one of the bigger advantages of one-page rules is that it's very balanced and everything's very easy to read. Mantic sort of has a bit of a mismatch, particularly with their point calculator program, where you're like, oh, geez, there's like 80 units and they're barely organized in each army. So, and then each army sort of has like sub-factions in it. So only certain commanders work with this certain sub-faction of the group. I think that's an issue that Mantic has. So I think one-page rules sort of has a better idea on what each army sort of does and how it's going to work, while Mantic sort of seems to be a bit of a hodgepodge with some of their armies.
Yeah.
And I think the D8s I think are also a big advantage for Mantic because just that little bit of extra range makes those elite units feel more elite and makes their chaffy units feel more chaffy.
Yeah.
Pretty much OPR is sort of bound to that sort of Warhammer style D6 system. And I think the more I play, the more I realize that the D6 system is very limited. All you can really do is add and subtract benefits to those sixes to alter it. Having those sort of extra die ranges means that you've got a bit more wiggle room in those benefits as well. So it's just sort of like, I feel like Mantic is a little bit better at sort of actual battlefield playing, while I think OPR is better at the list building side of things at the moment.
Yeah, I feel I would want to echo like Mantic. I have such a love-hate relationship with them. I feel that their game, like they design from a mechanics perspective, I feel a lot of Mantic games get it. Like they feel about right. The games, other than some of the games, like Kings of War is a great example of a game that had a few weird aspects, but was overall a very well designed game. And so you have that aspect, and I know Firefight, I feel, is a better designed game than One Page Rules. What I sort of feel is that there is almost like a schizophrenia in Mantic, where you have one person designing the rules and another person designing the armies.
I'd agree.
It's a schizophrenia because then you go into the armies and they are so just disorganized, and it's the thing to me that really irks me about Mantic is that they charge their rule books. If you're going to charge a premium, I paid $60 for the Kings of War 4th edition, and when it has glaring spelling errors and copy paste mistakes, that isn't something free. That's a $60. You charged me $60. You've got to hold your standards higher on the army list. That's the thing with Mantic that I you have to criticize them. You cannot, if you are going to sell books, the quality and has to be there. Otherwise it's really falling into game where I think 4th edition, where the army lists are effectively dead on arrival. I paid $60 and basically I'm going to have to go to the Mantic companion that is paid now. So
yes,
but I also love them that I do sincerely feel that they they get like the design of the games feels good. It feels like, other than I could have minor gripes about Firefight and minor gripes about Kings of War, but overall the game design felt great. What's going on
Yeah, I
with
think they're
their
really
what's going on with their army list design?
Yeah, I think they're really strong. I think you're right. I think they're really strong at rule building, like they're great at that. But their army building is where they sort of fall a little short. Maybe one page rules and Mantic shoot together and make a joint game. You know,
Yeah,
Mantic does the rules, one page rules does the army.
I think you're right. The other thing I think with Mantic is, and I guess this is a part of it, but they are where one page rules gets it. People really don't care about your particular, like they want to play GW games. Like when I played Firefight and I loved it, but I didn't just want to play my Marines as a generic is that what they're called? Enforcers, I think.
Enforcers,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
base marine sort of stand-in.
And then you had the Eldar. I guess they're the elves, but they're nothing like, I can't play my Eldar army. Same thing with Kings of War, that I think they really overvalue their lore in the sense that, like, and that's this is the thing, especially when it comes to like Epic Warpath. So I bought the Firefight book, no one plays it. I bought Warpath book, and no one plays it. Do I really want to invest into Epic Warpath and buy another book and then models that, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's the thing. Like, is Mantic, like, what do you kind of feel about that? That just one page rule seems to get it. That, hey, we want to play our GW models in your game. You know.
I think the big thing is that OPR has been really smart in that regard. They go, we're just going to make a generic one, and they focus on building the rules in the army first, and now they're starting to do war now that they're a bit more established. But I think it's just a smart move to go, well, we're miniature agnostic and just play whatever the hell you want. We'll try and match some stuff. I think one of the big problems with Mantic is that they're a little bit too sort of like, oh, this is our law and this is how it has to be. And I think that does hurt them in the long run because it's just so easy just to fall into one page rules, right? You can just go, here's my army, I'm ready to play, and I'm done. With Mantic, if you're going to sort of play semi officially, you've got to have their miniatures, you've got to have their rule book and all that kind of stuff. I think if they went, here's some cool miniatures that you can use, but we're miniature agnostic, I think they would have a much stronger sort of outing than they're currently having.
Yeah, yeah. I do. I actually I would, if OPR and Mantic are listening, you really should partner together and have Tano work on your army list, or at least that army list builder, which I think is the best thing an OPR has, the custom army. And I love that they've expanded.
Agreed.
Yeah, that I'm actually going to be working on custom armies this coming year. That was the other big thing I have on my plate, is trying to be working on the competitive side of that. But that's a thing that I think it is a real fascinating thing. I wanted to, because it's always good to get someone else's experience with Mantic and to make sure you're not the crazy one and you're not the only one in the world. Kind of like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it does feel a bit that way, particularly with these sort of semi-outlier games. It's a bit hard to sort of sit there and go, am I just wrong? Like, am I having the wrong opinion here? And then you try and go to the Reddit, and of course, you got the ride and die guys there, so they're very hard to get an answer out of it that isn't like, no, you just have to try harder, basically.
And I've heard, I haven't played it, but I've heard good things about Halo Flashpoint. Now, I'm not a Halo person whatsoever, so for me, it had no appeal. But for people who loved Halo, I've heard people talk personally who say it's a great game. It's played at my local shop. They love it. The models, I looked at them, look great. It's that seems to be getting some good traction here. Where do you kind of see Halo Flashpoint going? Do you think they're going to expand it, or do you think that they are just going to keep this at its current level?
Oh, geez, that is a good question. I think if they're smart, they should sort of semi-pivot towards it because Halo's already got that pre-established sort of fan base. They're already sort of predisposed to that sort of wargaming kind of sector as well, because Halo's got a few tactical games as well. So I think having some sort of pivot towards it would probably be a smart move. I haven't played it personally. I've heard good things. So I think if you're hearing good things and you're getting some fan traction and people are playing it, I think it's just a no-brainer to kind of
Yeah.
pivot into it, right?
Yeah, I may not play it, but I mean, I've heard good things about it. So I want to go in a bit of a lightning round here. I want to sort of, I'm going to give you a bit of a talk, give you a question, and then sort of just get your off the cuff response. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And you can, if you
Yeah,
don't know
no.
it, answer. Just so we can just have a little fun here. No, nothing major here. So I'd love to get, what do you think, and have you heard about the StarCraft 2 or StarCraft miniatures game? And I want to know, it's in there, and there's a lot. What's your? There's some strong opinions one way or another. What do you think about the StarCraft miniatures game that is being developed by Blizzard? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting idea, and I think it's a good match. I mean, it's already a strategy game, so it's not too much of a jump. It's got a big fan base. I think have a crack at it and see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is this something that you would be interested? Like, I don't know if you're a. I'm a StarCraft guy. How about you? How do you feel about that lore or anything? Where do you kind of fall on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a StarCraft guy. It was one of the first like strategy games I sort of played. I mean, Warcraft One was obviously the first, but I played a lot with friends, and I think yeah, I'm looking forward to having a crack at it. We'll see what happens when it comes out, and I'll have a bigger opinion when it does.
Okay, cool. I'm going to ask about some other games. So, Trench Crusade seems to be in such a weird spot in that it's a love it or where do you kind of fall on that trench? It seems to be a love it or hate it game. Where do you kind of fall on the Trench Crusade game spectrum? What do you kind of feel about that game? Because it's sort of one thing that really stuck out to me, and I see Trench Crusade being played okay, but the online presence for Trench Crusade, like I know, I spoke with Scanner Barkley, who's going to reach 100,000 subscribers. I don't know of any other war game other than GW that's even close to that. Even OPR is like 5,000 or so. You've got some channels which are running 20,000, I think. So, what do you think sort of happening here? I'll let you kind of give your 2 cents on that.
I think the thing is that World War One is one of those sort of wars that, in general consciousness, is sort of shrouded in mystery, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that we go like, oh well, how did this actually work, and how did that work? So I think adding like that sort of like horror, mystical sort of element to it was just a really strong move to make in that sort of area. I think it sort of lends itself, the gas mask is already sort of like an otherworldly feel of World War One. So I just think it was a very smart move to do it, and I think it's just captured people's imaginations. It's got that sort of gritty, dark, like brooding sort of nature, and I think people just are drawn to that as a war game. So I think overall, I think it's going to be a strong outing. I'm looking forward to having a crack at it sometime this year. It's on my list, so
Oh, very cool.
we'll see how that
Cool.
goes.
Good to hear. Now, I wanted to get your question about the rank and flank space. So you played Warhammer. You seem to like it. You see what I don't know what you did in the past. So
Yeah.
I want to kind of get your thoughts on rank and flank. Like, we've got Warhammer: The Old World. It came out to such a weird receptance. I think that Warhammer: The Old World is actually coming with its second edition pretty soon. I think by the end of this year, if they follow the 3-year cycle, we're going to see the new edition. We have Kings of War, 4th edition coming out. We then have, I think we've got a few outliers. I have Conquest, I think, is still in the mix, I believe. I've heard it's around. And then A Song of Ice and Fire seems to kind of be on the going down a little bit. It got big in here. So I'd love to kind of know, what's your sort of thoughts on the rank and file plays? Where do you kind of see? Do you see old, like, where do you kind of see this space going? It feels like it's in such a weird area right now.
I think the big thing with rank and flank, which is honestly my favorite way to play a large
Mm.
scale war game, I think the big thing with it is that it's always a bit of a niche, right? It's never really been the king of the war games.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like with rank and flank, you've really got to put some brain power into what moves you make. Because you make a bad move and you gotta get flanked, and oh boy, bad news bears, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the thing is that it's gonna stay being sort of like the weird cousin that people occasionally talk to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So I enjoy rank and flank. I think it's a niche sort of area, and I can see certainly that we're going to keep getting sort of niche games brought out. I really did like Song of Ice and Fire. Actually, I played a few games with a friend of mine, and I think the big advantage that has is the rule of three. But I also think that Game of Thrones itself is dropping in popularity, so
Mm-hmm.
it's going with it basically.
I see. I see. I see. Okay. So I want to get your take on the next 5 years. So let's make some assumptions. And these are all just, and this is just for fun, right? No one,
Yeah.
let's suppose that 11th edition is supposedly, if I'm following the schedule, 11th edition is coming out. Let's make an assumption that 11th edition is basically going to be 10th edition tweaked. We don't know. Let's sort of go in with that assumption. Where do you sort of see wargaming 5 years from now? Do you see a game able to break into maybe a War Machine esque? Because remember, War Machine, it really did break that ceiling. We've heard games like I've heard one page rules. Oh, it's gonna do it. It's not quite. It feels like all these games. So maybe, or do you see a game actually breaking out into the War Machine esque, or do you see in 5 years from now we're still gonna just be where we're at today? Or what do you kind of augur the future for?
I think it's actually kind of a bit hard to predict the future at this point. We seem to be in sort of the Wild West period of war games. We've gone past the Renaissance. We're now sort of shooting from the hip. I think the thing is that in 5 years, where do I see it? I think Warhammer's popularity is going to cool. I think it's going to drop. It's still going to be the game, but I think it's going to be closer. The question is what game do I see sort of coming up? Oh, geez, that's a hard one. I think one page rules, I think, has a chance, but I also think that it's sort of going to be the little brother for a fair while. I think the issue is they've got to step out of the shadow of Games Workshop, right?
Yeah.
In order to overtake them, which may not happen anytime soon. Trench Crusade, maybe. I mean, I think if they play things right, they could be definitely up there. It could be another ceiling breaker there. But I think there's just too much unknown. There's too many war games coming out, and they're all sort of competing for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just too hard to predict exactly where we'll shoot at 5 years. The pessimist in me wants to say we're just going to be where we are right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But I don't think that's true.
it it's fascinating because I think we're getting some bigger games to do. So we think about Warlord games. I feel they're really making a push. Conflict 47 is really a push. It seems well designed. It seems to just be you get them. I know they've actually came up with some board games as well. We haven't covered this, but I know that they're putting out war games which are very similar. Warlord games really seems to be aggressively trying to take that. Then you have Corvus Belli, which I think has always stayed in the mix. Infinity is still going, and they're pushing into Warcrow, which I've seen a lot of traction. And so I'm saying you're starting to get these companies which are getting some backers behind them. And like I said, Warlord, and then you have Osprey, which is, so I guess to me, I could see really Warlord games. I feel really come out, maybe make some partnerships. That'd be interesting to see. Could we see some consolidation in the next? What would sort of be if you could be? I'll throw another question at you because we're just having fun, right?
Yeah.
How would you take down GW? So if you had all these players, what would you do? Or would you like? How would you? Let's suppose. How would you take down GW? Just as a fun little question,
Oh man, that is a hard one. GW is a bit like Goliath at this point, right? Like it's just like this huge monolith. I think the big thing is that trying to beat GW at its own game is not the way to go. I think is the big thing. I think you're right. I think Warlord is making some good moves. They're releasing a game version of Bolt Action, which is not just like some generic game with bolt action as the theme. It's actual legitimate digital bolt action.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good move. Um, I think how I'd sort of approach attacking Games Workshop is I would focus on things that it doesn't do. So miniature agnostic, alternate activations, getting some game like a digital copy of my game out, like a legitimate digital war gaming table. And then I'd probably sort of focus on getting people in to sort of play and enjoy the game. And I'd probably go for a more, sort of a bit more open rule set. So, like having that sort of wiggle room where people can sort of try different things and not necessarily get bitten in the ass by it, I think is the big thing. And I'd love to say I'd like to introduce a new dice, but I also think that'd be a bad move. I don't think people are ready for new dice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I have a few more hot takes. One, what do you think about War Machine? Where do you see it for surging, or where we know it was bought out? Any thoughts on with the Steam? Was it Steamforge took them over? Have you? What are
Yeah.
your thoughts? Yeah. So what? Where do you kind of see War Machine going? Do you see it being a nothing burger, or getting around where it was, or something
Look,
similar?
I think War Machine is sort of where it's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
which is this kind of interesting offshoot of wargaming. I played it back when it first came out. I think the big problem is that the miniatures are just a little bit too expensive. Like,
Yeah.
yes, you need less miniatures, great, but it's really hard for me to justify going in and buying like a $280 army, and you get like 15 guys.
And the resin now, they've moved away from, I think they're going the
Yeah,
resin route, which I just can't
they're
justify the same
going for
price.
metals.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the only advantage I will say is the War Machine actually does have a store on my mini factory, so you can get the 3D prints.
okay.
So you can 3D print your own guys now. So I'll give them a big old tick for that. But I just feel like there's this sort of when I play War Machine, I always kind of low grade board.
Mm,
I found personally, so I just think that I don't see them really improving. I don't think they're going anywhere either. I think they've got that niche, and I think they're going to keep that niche.
okay, cool. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I look at like what's happened with X-Wing because I know recently X-Wing and Armada I think got shut down. So where does that hold for? Because I know because you've got these other IPs. I want to just quick opinions on because you got the MCU, you got the Marvel IP coming in, and then you've got the Star Wars IP coming in. I think both of these are Disney, correct? I'm not sure.
Yes, yes.
So is that something that's going to get market share? Because that is a big company behind it. Where do you kind of see? I mean, because Star Wars Legion is such an interesting thing that they're trying to push it, but they also have two other Star Wars games which they killed. I always kind of like where do you kind of see the Star Wars and the Marvels and these specific IPs going?
Honestly, at the present moment, having looked into both of them, I don't actually see them really improving. I think the issue with both of them is that they sort of went for a push, realized it wasn't going to be as easy as that, and then just dropped it. And now they're sort of just playing face service to it, basically.
Oh wow. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, I would love to keep you on for, as always with my guests, I'd love to keep you on forever and talk about wargamings, but we're going to kind of come to a close. I appreciate your time. So I love to ask, what is your so now this is favorite sci-fi and fantasy lore, but it has to be from a war game. So maybe give us your favorite faction lore from a sci-fi and fantasy And the lore can be anything as long as it's a war game.
Oh, geez, that I think probably Necrons from 40K. I've always been a big fan of those guys, even if they are a bit of a Terminator ripoff. But I really enjoy theirs. And then I'd probably say the vampire counts from fantasy. Honestly,
Okay,
I
yeah,
love the vampire counts.
very cool. And that's solid, really solid. That's nothing. I mean, that puts you right in that early two, because that's when Necrons would come, kind of the early oddies. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And they're great. It's two really solid things as well. I think as well, that's the early oddies is when they fleshed out vampire counts as their own thing, because they used to just be part of undead. So that's cool. Um,
yeah.
Love to ask one question. All right. So I always ask this to all my guests. So if time and money were not a factor, so let's suppose you were a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
What what would your dream wargaming experience be? So if you had all the time and all the money to do, what would you just sky's the limit? What would you love to do?
I think the big thing I'd always love to do is like travel to the UK and actually go to like, these places where wargaming sort of began its modern journey, right? Go visit like the Warlord sort of area, go visit even Warhammer and stuff like that, and just have a proper look around and hopefully even chat to some of these designers. I think it's and go to a convention because I don't think I'm making it to the UK anytime soon. So
Well,
I
I
think I
get
just love doing something like
that's true. I guess you would have to be a billionaire to do that from Australia because that is.
that, pretty much.
Well, Vamps, thanks so much for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about what's some future plans for your channel?
Yeah, so I've of course got more reviews coming out, both miniature ranges and regular reviews. I got about 16 games I'm looking to plan this year, so
Wow,
we'll see how we go, but there'll definitely be at least 12.
very nice.
As far as the other stuff, I'm going to keep doing what I call Grimdark Fridays, which is just me talking about Grimdark Future. I've got some army list building because I've had a lot of beginners go, oh, I don't really know how to build an army list, so they're coming out. And I've also got a new little special challenge run esque Grimdark Future thing I'm going to be doing, which should be coming out either this Friday or next Friday, depending on how it's going.
Very cool, very cool. Now I'll post your link in the description. For those listening, give us where can people find you, your YouTube channel, or anything else you want to shout out.
Yeah, so I've got my YouTube channel, of course, which you can just find me as Count Vamps Tabletop. Sorry.
Mhm.
I'm also on Instagram, but I mostly post the Guess What the Printing stuff from my regular channel. And I've also got a Discord that I sort of just, post sneak peeks and stuff in. So you can find me on all that stuff.
Hey, Count Vamps, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.